Let's do this.
We are good to go.
We are good to go.
Yeah. Hey, I am Jeremy Scott Gibbs. This is my brain. The earwig scratching as usual. Mr. Tony Bradley. We're going to talk about we're going to do another episode on logical fallacies. But before we do that, disclaimer, please.
The disclaimer says, notice this place is politically incorrect. We say Merry Christmas, one nation under God. We salute our flag and give thanks to our troops. If this offends you, leave.
Right. And we also consume adult beverages.
Yes.
Cuss, not curse. And may say something that offends you. Get over it or get out.
Right. Or educate yourself on it. Do the due diligence
Exactly.
to fully understand what it is we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to disagree with us.
We're flipping back and forth. There we go. Hey, there we are. So, we want to get into another logical fallacy. Last time we did appeal to authority. Mm-hmm. That was a really good one. I enjoyed our discussion on that immensely.
Absolutely.
Of course, I enjoy always our discussions. So, I want to read the logical fallacy, just what a logical fallacy is, because we didn't start the other episode out with this, but I want to read this so that people get it. A logical fallacy is a flaw in reasoning. Logical fallacies are like tricks or illusions of thought. You can throw that up, Nate. I think I had that pulled up on the desktop. Illusions of thought, and they are often very sneakily used. Sneakily, is that a word?
I don't know.
Sneakily used by politicians and media to fool people. Don't be fooled. And then they say this website has been designed to help you identify and call out dodgy logic wherever it may raise its ugly head. Its ugly, incoherent head. And then they talk about the icons. So this is yourlogicalfallacies.com. That's where we got those. That's where I printed all these off from this site.
Yeah.
And put them on my wall. We also discovered today that they actually have cognitive biases. So we've got 24 logical fallacies that they've compiled.
Right.
24 cognitive biases.
And it's a lot of great stuff that,
Excellent stuff.
If you're looking to start a conversation with somebody, going back to the three, definition.
Yeah, the
rhetoric,
grammar, logic.
Yes.
Grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And that's what, it's in the rhetoric a lot of times.
Of course.
Because they skip the first two steps.
Right.
That people will use these logical fallacies to try to influence or sway or control or do whatever they're trying to do.
Well, I look at a lot of the topics and discussions that we've had over the course of our friendship is I often tell you, I know enough to be dangerous.
Right.
Let me get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Because you educate yourself enough to be familiar with the terminologies and the vernacular and the vocabulary, but when it comes to actually knowing a lot of the facts, you let other people's influences weigh your bias. You let, this person of influence, like we were talking in appeal authority.
Right.
Well, this person is an expert.
Yeah, they're an expert.
In this field.
Yeah. Appeal to authority.
Right.
Well, so-and-so who wears a fucking lab coat said such and such, and so therefore it has to be true. And you go,
wait a minute, what?
It doesn't have to be true.
Right.
What's the research?
What?
One of them, just another one.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs. Do you know how little information they actually have about dinosaurs?
Of course.
So every time now they say, we've discovered a new dinosaur.
Right.
Dig through the article and find out. And they've discovered a toe bone.
Yeah.
And from the toe bone, they speculated on what the rest of the whole freaking animal looks like. And you're like,
of course.
What the hell, dude?
Oh, yeah. I've got a great theory on what actually wiped out the dinosaurs. Should I save it for another show? Or should I just toss it out there?
There's a lot
Well, it has a lot to do with the bandwagon mentality.
Yeah.
People talk about, it's the Great Deluge. It's a meteor, asteroid pelting. It's this, that, and the other thing. My perspective is, and I can't take full credit for this because I was having a conversation with my friend Heath.
Okay.
That when you look at any ecosystem, the biggest thing in that ecosystem is generally the first thing that goes extinct because the food chain is not
can't
support it.
Right.
So when you are consuming tons and tons of food, eventually you're going to eat yourself into extinction.
True.
So that's kind of my theory, but we'll talk more about that in a later.
Yeah, because I've got ideas on that too, and there's a lot of evidence that's suppressed. I mean, there's some very valid claims that the Smithsonian holds a lot of giant bones.
Oh, absolutely.
Giant human bones.
Yeah.
A lot of other dinosaurs' bones. There's one beach that they've profiled that has tons and tons of. This is a northern climate or center climate near the Antarctic or near the Arctic.
Yeah.
The North Pole.
Hudson Bay is infamous for stuff like that.
And they've got just bones littered everywhere,
Yep.
not fossilized, just bones everywhere, as if these animals died recently.
Right.
And when you look at the dragons of the Middle Ages, you
Of
realize
course.
these were not fanciful things. These were
Real
huge
legitimate
animals that were
Yeah.
around still.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot to it. Anyways, so today we want to talk about in this episode Bandwagon. And you pulled up that one. I got this one.
I got the definition here. Go ahead and start off.
So this is Bandwagon from yourlogicalfallacies.com, and Nate put it up on the screen. You appealed to popularity. You appealed to popularity or the fact that many people do something as an attempted form of validation. So basically, because everybody else is doing it, you're going to jump on it. And I've got some real issues with this.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, it's basically if somebody's screaming loud enough and I can get everybody to join me in my screaming.
Of course.
I immediately, when somebody has to yell their position or their stance on something or what they believe, if you have to yell at me about or yell, get all loud. Let's just say it that way. You have to get loud. I tend to dismiss you.
Yeah.
I try not to dismiss you outright because that's another bias. That's another biased thing. But I tend to be leery of you when you have to shout me down in your opinion. And because I've come from places like I believe what I believe.
Right.
I give two shits whether you believe it or not.
Right.
I believe it, and I'm living successful. And where I'm not successful, I'm adjusting and growing and moving forward.
Maturing, yeah.
But that's what I believe.
Right.
So I don't have to get you to believe. I don't have to get you to get on my bandwagon to validate it. And I see so many people and so many pockets of society where they... Am I a little hot there, Nate? I swear I didn't touch it. There's so many times in society where people are screaming at the top of their lungs.
Yeah.
We could do politics, we could do
Religion.
race, we could do religion, but they're screaming at the top of their lungs, and I go, are you... I know you want somebody to jump on with you,
right.
But at the same time, you tend to lead me to believe that you don't totally believe this. And if you can get 5 or 6 people to jump on your bandwagon,
right.
Then it'll reinforce your beliefs.
Well, I look at the tragedies of the lynch mobs.
Yeah.
And how many innocent people, just because of ethnicity.
Ethnicity or circumstance or proximity.
Right.
Well, you were on that road that day. Yeah, but I didn't have nothing to do with it.
Right. And that's the thing is, I'm not just talking, African Americans. I'm not talking, whites. It's across the board.
Yeah.
Because of whatever culture you come from.
Yeah.
You're one of those.
Right.
And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Right.
It blows my mind how the subculture or minority has the biggest voice of justice because someone yelled loud enough to go, well, hey, this person seems intelligent enough to create a cause. And we've had countless conversations with, the whole government aspect. There's a lot of really dumb, smart people in politics representing us that, unfortunately, enough uneducated people were able to go exercise their right according to the Constitution and elect these officials into office.
Right.
Not fully weighing the facts of did they vote on this, did they vote on that? No, they jumped on the bandwagon and went, hey.
Yeah. Whatever's popular at the moment, that's what I'm gonna go for.
Let's follow the latest trend of who is the most socially acceptable politician or religious leader.
Right.
Or, social warrior, because I can get on my, device
Yep.
and tap, 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 and pump out a ridiculous amount of fallacies to sway the popular ideology. I mean, the definition that I pulled up from Webster's.
Yeah, read that.
It's noun. It's a noun. It says used in reference to an activity, cause, etc., that is currently fashionable or popular in attracting increasing support. The second definition is especially formally a wagon used for carrying in a band or parade or procession. I find that interesting. That when you look at the bandwagon thing,
yeah,
people are parading around and wanting attention, but yet when the attention's put on them, it's like whoa, 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 whoa.
Well, and how much easier is it to go along with the crowd, go along with whatever's being presented? That's the bandwagon effect. Does it have any historical context on the bandwagon itself? Basically, they used to have.
It's from the 19th century.
Yeah.
And it's got the root word. Both of them are from English.
Yeah, no. But the concept or idea of a bandwagon, where you would, they would literally have a band,
right,
on a wagon, and they would be riding through on a parade. You guys have seen them on parades.
Oh, absolutely.
So they're riding on this bandwagon, right? And whatever the tune is, you just follow. It's kind of the Pied Piper. You could probably add the Pied Piper effect, where you're just following the tune and riding along with it, and not questioning where it's headed.
Look at the sirens of Greece or Rome?
Yeah.
They attracted them.
Yep.
To basically their death.
Yeah, they brought them to the shoreline,
right,
so that they would wreck.
Or brought them overboard of the ship.
Yeah.
And they drowned.
Yep.
It was a lot of that. So I mean, there's a phrase here in the bottom of this definition that says jumping on the bandwagon, joining others in doing or supporting something fashionable or likely to be successful. Mm-hmm. And that phrasing is interesting. Fashionable or likely.
Yeah.
To be successful.
Right.
And I mean, you have the alternate version of that, or the opposite version of that, of jumping on the bandwagon, because it's facts. You've done the due diligence. You've educated yourself,
right?
And now you're the torchbearer for, well, this is right. This is good. Mm-hmm. But there's still fallacies there,
right?
That unless you're doing the due diligence, unless you're understanding the definition, unless you are educating yourself in it, you're polishing the brass in the Titanic. It's all going down.
Going down. Yeah, absolutely. And that's when we think about this, the bandwagon effect. What I think more is somebody creates a movement, and people jump on it to feel like they're part of something, to feel like they're. In fact, you appealed to the popularity or the fact that many people do something as an attempted form to validate it. Well, everybody's doing this, so let's jump on it, right?
Right.
And we know that they use that type of peer pressure with kids. Well, everybody's doing drugs. And what's the phrase that we say? Well, if everybody was jumping off of a cliff, would you jump off too? Well, on its face, people would go, no, I'm not going to jump off too. But there's other people that would go, in those situations, they do those tests where somebody walks into the room.
Right.
And there's already 20 people there.
Of course.
And somebody gives an answer, and it's clearly wrong.
Right.
But everybody says it's right, and the one person that's not in on it says, well, it's like a really high percentage of the people just go along with everybody else.
Of course.
Very few people go, no, that's not wrong, or that's not right. You guys are all messed up.
Right.
And so there's that dynamic of the bandwagon effect. And I think I've listened to so many different arguments and people that do this, to where they haven't done the research, they haven't studied it out for themselves, they haven't even cracked anything to do it. They've just jumped on this bandwagon because, and these all tie together. We're focused on one aspect, but all of these aspects tie together. If you're dealing with an appeal to authority, you can't just deal with an appeal to authority. You have to deal with all of them. And so when I look at the bandwagon, there's an appeal to authority aspect to it.
That reminds me of I think it was a quote Gandhi said, I'm paraphrasing poorly, but look it up.
Yeah, look it up.
the quote that he said, "I don't have a problem with God. It's his followers."
Yes. Absolutely.
That's brilliant, because that's that bandwagon mentality of, you've got your radical Christians, you've got your lukewarm Christians, you've got all of these people that are following the one true God.
Right.
And yet have never read the Bible day one.
Right.
I mean, I look at, there was a huge thing with Metallica and Napster. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny seeing the interviews through the course of the years, because some people still bring it up and talk about it. But Lars,
yeah,
who was the poster child for media scrutiny of going, you've got all this money, why do you care about somebody downloading and sharing your stuff? And he's like, that's not the issue.
Right.
And he's like, all of the other musician and professionals and whatnot, dude, we support what you're doing. We just can't do that because we're basically committing career suicide.
Right.
And he's like, well, then get on board with it. What's it like to be the most hated man in heavy metal because they think it's about a money issue? No, it's about stuff that's not even released, let alone finished.
Right.
Being shared out there because someone goes, oh, hey, dude, I worked on this project with this really successful band. Here's some stuff because, they're not paying me today. I mean, come on, seriously? If don't be afraid to be, like you were talking about, doing these experiments. Yeah, that's wrong. Mm-hmm. And I don't care if I have to stand by myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to stand by myself because that's not the right way to go about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at Fight Club. We love the movie Fight Club. There are so many truths to that. You remember the scene when they go to the party store? Mm-hmm. And he's like, what's your name? What do you want to do?
Animals.
Right.
You want to be a veterinarian?
Right.
Yeah. Why are you doing that, Raymond? Raymond K. Hessel. Says you live in apartment B. It's a shitty lower basement apartment, isn't it, Raymond?
Yes.
How'd you know that? Because they always give letters instead of numbers.
Right. Well, and it's funny because at the end of that scene, he's like, are you a madman? What is wrong with you? This is too much. You're a psycho.
He goes, tomorrow will be the most beautiful day he's ever had in his life.
Right. The colors will be more colorful. The food will taste better. Because when you're put into that position of you had a near life experience.
Right.
And moving forward, you appreciate those things that much more.
Yeah.
Instead of going along with the popular belief or whatever's trending at that point in time. Does it suck any less when you have to stand by yourself to go, wait a minute, what's actually going on here that everybody is flocking to this, the lemmings mentality. I'm going to follow the person in front of me.
Right.
Well, guess what? They're falling off a 3,000-foot cliff to their death.
Right.
And splattering on the rocks. Is that really what you want to do?
Yeah.
Well, no, I want to live. Well, then get out of line.
Yeah.
And stop following the person in front of you and ask those questions.
Right.
I mean, good God. I can't tell you how many times I've been the one that was alienated because I didn't have the popular belief. And went, wait a minute, what's actually going on here? How come nobody's asking this question? Well, we did, but we didn't really ask it. Well, then what are you doing?
And isn't the bandwagon translates to so many areas? It's very pervasive. The bandwagon mentality of, I think immediately global warming, but now they call it climate change, and it's like, it's amazing to me the amount of things that are set in stone, can't be moved. Right. This is the absolute way it is until something else comes up and they go, oh, I was telling my buddies not even a couple years ago, just like a year and a half ago, year and a half ago. And I'm like, dude, do you look up in the sky and see the chemtrails? They're spraying us, and one of my buddies is a pilot and he's like, that's not true. It's just contrails. I'm like, oh, okay. And then articles started coming out over the last year in mainstream, the lamestream major media, where they've had to admit that they've been trying to, they've been spraying the shit out of the skies to try and control global warming, which is another fallacy. And then so I'm looking at my buddies going, I wasn't jumping on the bandwagon that was just contrails and believing the bullshit. I actually did the research and was looking up at it. Absolutely. And you guys jumped on the bandwagon of, well, no, that's just such and such. And you can see them. One guy will go, no, the prevailing belief, they don't say it like that, but they go, the prevailing belief on that subject is such and such. And the rest of them in the room go, oh, yeah, what he's saying. And I go, no. Have you studied it? I sometimes, I've done it in the past, I didn't do it this time, but I want to come back and print something out and then hand it to them.
Right.
And I have done that in the past for some people.
Course.
Other times it's not worth it because you're maintaining friendships. It's like, why get into the tribalism and become divided over this stupid issue?
Right. And it's stupid and petty, but the thing is that if you're going to come at a person with this,
right,
and not back it up with anything, it's stupid and petty.
It is.
I mean, okay, are we really?
And against the shouting, it's the bandwagon, it's the big hoopla, it's the making the noise on the float as it goes by.
Right.
That's the thing. It's like, come on, jump on the bandwagon. We're doing this, man. We all believe such and such, and you go, wait, why? Why do we believe that?
Right.
What's the point of believing all that?
It's tradition that tradition changes because someone sat back for 5 seconds and went, why are we doing this?
Right.
Take the time to just go, okay, well, you talked about one of the episodes we dropped was your grandmother or something, or aunt or whatever, cut off the end of the roast.
Oh, no, it's just a story about a grandmother.
Right.
So the mom currently would cut off the end of the roast.
Right.
And put it in the pan. And finally, one of the kids went, why do you cut it off? And she goes, well, your grandma did that. And then your great-grandma did that. And finally, she goes to her mom and goes, Mom, why did you cut off the end of that? And she had to think about it. She's like, oh, Grandma's pan was too small. So you had to cut the end off of it because it wouldn't fit. And so this tradition, and that's another thing about traditions. Tradition, it comes from the word trade.
Right.
And it's supposed to be something that is literally, we trade. Okay, so I'm going to trade my knowledge and experience for your youth and vitality.
Right.
So I'm going to pass something down to you, and then you're gonna reciprocate by being, the strong back in whatever endeavor we're doing.
Absolutely.
And so that's where traditions come from. So when you have these traditions passed down without an equitable exchange,
right,
then they become empty. And Paul talked about it, Jesus talked about it, but they talk about it in the scriptures where they say these empty traditions handed down to you by your forefathers, because they're just handing them down. They're not.
There's no sustenance to it.
Well, if I hand you, it's like this. If I give you something, depending on the person you are, but by and large, if I give you something, it holds less intrinsic value.
Of course.
But if you have to earn it,
right, and
go get it yourself,
exactly,
then it holds a much more inherently intrinsic value to it because you've earned it.
Right.
So when you hand something down, hand-me-downs they could be the coolest hand-me-downs.
Right.
But if you don't have a vested interest in them,
right,
then you don't care about them. Now, we say that all things being considered because I hand down my jeans and shirts and different things to my boys, and they're like, dude, whereas, and you talked about our one episode where Bill took you into his closet and handed you, some Armani jeans and some diesel jeans, and you're like, oh shit, because they were, you understood the intrinsic value, but normally, the intrinsic value is not there in just handing something empty down. Of course, in that exchange as well, he's handing you jeans, and we were working on a bunch of business stuff, so there was back and forth and honoring and.
And that was the thing is the core principle here is the fact that it was my brother showing me an action of love.
Right.
Because, hey, man, I can't wear these anymore.
Right.
I'm going to give these to you because I know you're going to appreciate one of who is giving it to you.
Yeah.
Because you respect, admire, love, appreciate. Aside from the monetary price tag that comes with it, it's here's some jeans.
Right.
I mean, it's plain and simple, cut and dry. Because my brother literally will give you the shirt off of his back.
Right.
Because he's a giver. He's a person that's going to pour into you. And you're like, wow, you're giving me these?
Yep.
When he could give you the scraps and you would still be just as excited. But he is one of those people that gives you the best of what he has. And it's incredible. Having that bandwagon mentality. Why can't that be a thing? Why can't we give each other the best, whether it's knowledge, wisdom, education, material things?
Right.
That needs to be the popular trend or whatever.
Yeah, but people get to be, the love of money, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, those are the things, that's that worldly mentality. you know. And so when you have a lot of stuff, I like to have stuff because it affords me the ability to do things.
Right.
They're tools.
Absolutely.
You know, going back to Fight Club, it's like the things you own end up owning you.
In so many ways.
And as long as they don't, but the reality is that the reciprocal is the effect of, if they don't own me, then I'm just using these things.
Right.
You know, I love these microphones. I love the computer. I love that stuff. But this is just a tool.
Right.
To do our podcast, to do what we're doing. And you've seen me be generous numerous,
exponential amount of times.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like I want to empower people and I want to be empowered myself, and so you have to have these things. So getting back to Bandwagon.
Yes.
You know, I'm amazed at the again, the lack of education, the lack of study that people, they just jump on it because it's the popular thing.
Right.
Well, this is this and this is that. And I go, man, the censorship that's going on.
Oh, good God.
Okay. We're going to be posting this to YouTube. We do our live streams to YouTube.
The Armageddon on YouTube.
Yeah. And we got some faith. So it's this popularity that we're going to suppress these types of voices that mention Alex Jones or mention Gavin McGinnis or Owen Schroyer or any number of these popular, you know, Steven Crowder is mostly completely demonetized with his videos, and he goes, and then they start to block his videos, and he goes, why?
Right.
Why are you blocking my video?
Right.
Because I said that, you know, the candidates that you like on the left don't like what I have to say. You know, Alex Jones is saying stuff, and they're like, well, we don't like what you have to say. And so there's this whole bandwagon
of course.
that everybody's jumping on, and when they actually break it down and go, okay, you're censoring us. Well, yeah, but because we have the right to do that. No, you don't.
No, you don't.
If you're an open forum, if you're a public square, then you're a public square and you have no right to do that. And then they try to go, well, we're a publisher. Oh, okay. Then you're going to be held liable for every bit of content on your platform. Well, no, we're not a publisher. We're a public square. Okay, then you can't censor us. You can't have it both ways. And they've come out and said it both ways, Twitter and
repeatedly.
All these things. And they're like censoring all this stuff. And I go, and what they're using a bunch of different things, but one of the main things they're using is a bandwagon effect.
Right.
They're using this, well, let's get on there. And I go back to it where, and they've been saying it.
Right.
You know, guys like Alex Jones is left, and he's like, watch it, man. It's a slippery slope. If they ban me today, they will ban you tomorrow.
Well, and look at Joe Rogan, you know, when he had Elon Musk on there, and it was so funny because he smoked a joint.
Right.
On the live show.
Yeah, and his stock dropped.
And it was hilarious because like 5-10 minutes later, his phone starts blowing up and they're going, what are you doing?
Right.
And his mentality, respectfully, and it wasn't arrogant, it wasn't narcissistic, it was, I'm Elon Musk.
Right.
I do what I want. I say what I want.
And if you're going on Joe Rogan, the chances of you smoking pot with Joe and having a drink with Joe are pretty up there. It's pretty.
Well, that's the point. It's an open forum to talk about whatever.
Right.
And there's a lot of seedy topics that they talk about, not because that's the format. It's because Joe's one of those guys that's unapologetically asking questions of, what do you think?
Right. Absolutely.
Where are your passions? Where are your loyalties? And are you convicted by them to stand on them when it counts?
Right.
Even when it doesn't count, but predominantly when it counts.
Yeah, what are your beliefs? I think that's the major thing for me with Bandwagon is when it comes down to it and you go, what do you believe at the end of the day? What is your what do you hold true? Not what the group think says. Isn't that a thing from 1984? Groupthink?
Yeah.
It's that's the bandwagon. It's the appeal to
what's the for Fahrenheit 451?
Right.
It's another one of those.
It's another groupthink.
Yeah.
And so that's why they want control of the media, because if the powers that be, the corporations that be, and the powers that be can continue to control the media and what's put out there, then it's much easier to get everybody on the bandwagon because you've been indoctrinated with a certain type of thought process.
Right.
You know, this group of people is inherently bad because of this trait or because of the color of their skin or because of this, and it's all bullshit. But that's what they push. It's like, you know, there's so many issues that you go, it's like, dude.
Well, look at the mentality that they started with the smear campaign for cotton and the lumber industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
against hemp.
Against hemp.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, if you look at it fundamentally, yes, hemp and marijuana are in the same family.
But they're not.
But they're two completely different things. I mean, our Constitution is written on hemp paper.
Right.
And it's lasted, what, 250, 275 years?
Yeah, 250, close to 250.
Right. Okay, so if it's had that kind of resiliency, I mean, obviously, yes, it's been
they're keeping it under glass and humidity controlled and all that stuff. But
still, almost 250 years.
Go back and do a study of World War II. In 1942-43,
right,
there was a whole campaign from the U.S. government, Hemp for Victory.
Yes.
Because all the rope and all the cannabis was made out of hemp.
Yes.
So you had these ropes and everything like that. So you've got hemp, industrial hemp, and they know this too. We're getting into a pot thing. Let's talk about this. So
Bandwagon.
The hemp, industrial hemp, is totally different than marijuana as far as smoking it.
Yes.
Because the way that you get marijuana that has the high THC content, there's literally a male and female plant.
Yes.
The male plant puts out pollen. The female plant secretes a sticky substance.
Yes.
In order to when the pollen's going through the air, it sticks to it, and then that's how it reproduces.
Right.
Okay. So when you take a marijuana, a hemp plant.
Yes.
And you deprive it of the male plant, the pollen, it secretes more and more and more stickiness to attract the pollen.
Yes.
And the more you deprive it of the pollen and don't give it any, it goes successfully generation after generation, just producing more. It's a perversion, you'll say, because it's trying to grab more and more of the sticky bud and producing more and more THC and other compounds there in order to attract that pollen. And as long as it doesn't have that pollen, it's going to keep that content, that THC and other substances really high to do that. They know in hemp production, if you introduce male plants to a marijuana growing area or facility, within 3 cycles, you will wipe out THC content to where it's no longer effective.
It's parts per million, isn't it?
It's no longer effective.
Right.
As soon as the pollen comes back in there, it takes 3 cycles to dial that back down to where it's industrial hemp. And if you understand, look up hemp, what the properties of it, you had 2 huge conglomerates. One was the producers as far as cotton and wood, like you mentioned.
Yep.
The other one was the synthetics.
Yes.
So you had the natural products and you had the synthetic products.
Right.
So you had
petroleum-based ones.
Yeah, Dow Chemical and Dow Chemical and DuPont.
Yes.
Producing
synthetics.
Nylons and synthetic plastics and all sorts of stuff out of petroleum-based products, which cracks me up because the bandwagon, we got to get off of foreign oils. I'm like, okay, go through your cupboard and get every stinking piece of plastic and throw it out because they're all made out. All those you're thinking about the gas pump,
right?
That's go the jar of Vicks Vapor Rub or Vaseline or whatever you have or lotions. They're petroleum-based products, unless you're buying something organic that is completely organic. The vast majority of the stuff off the shelf, the plastics, all that stuff is made from petroleum. And so when you get on your bandwagon, on your high horse and go, we got to get rid of these fossil fuels. First of all, that's bullshit about the fossils.
Elaborate on that.
You're thinking that.
Elaborate on that.
That the only reason we have oil is because a whole bunch of dinosaurs got smashed and died, and then they're producing it. No, they have done studies. You can look this up. It gets suppressed. But their oil fields that they thought would be done, would be dry, have more oil in them 50, 100 years later than they originally had. And they go, well, maybe they miscalculated. No, it is a renewable resource. It is they're renewing it. It's constantly being filtered, just like water filters through the soil. Their organic plants and matter filter through and become these hydrocarbons that are in these oil fields, and they are replenishing.
Right.
And so the whole idea of calling it a fossil fuel, that's another bandwagon. It's another.
Look at the oil fields. There was an article, it's eluding me as I'm trying to remember it. There's an article published about John D. Rockefeller's oil fields in the Ohio River Valley. Mm-hmm. How they stopped producing oil. And this is probably about 10, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. a couple of years after that, there was another article put out that was only around for a minute that said they are producing more oil than they have in the heyday of John D. Rockefeller.
Right.
When he was at his max capacity for pumping out oil.
Right. In the same spots.
In the same spots.
Right.
I mean, look it up. You're going to have to dig.
It's no different to me than diamonds.
Right.
Oil, diamonds, all these other things. If you don't know about that, look up the diamond cartels, okay?
Right.
There are more diamonds on this earth, on this plane of existence, than you could fathom. Well, and they keep harvesting them all the time. That's where the movie Blood Diamond and the articles about blood diamonds come from. Is all these diamonds are coming out of the ground, and they should be pretty well dirt cheap.
Well, look at the big four when it comes to trade platforms. You've got oil, diamonds, currencies, and gold.
Yep.
Now, those are the four world trade
big
platforms for making any sort of money.
And if it was discovered that you had an abundance,
right,
those prices would drop in the basement.
Of course.
So we artificially suppress the amount of oil that we have. We artificially suppress the amount of diamonds that we have. I mean, Blood Diamond, I know it's pretty much a work of fiction.
Right.
But the truths in it,
of course,
are exactly, well, it's based on the reporter.
Right.
So there is some factual evidence in there.
Right.
But the idea that they're gathering up all these diamonds, just throwing them in vaults.
Right.
Not even messing with them, because if they release the amount of diamonds that there actually are,
right,
then the price of a diamond ring would drop in the basement. The quality of the diamond,
right,
and the beauty of it would still be there,
of course,
but the price would be would way down, and so they suppress these industries. They suppress these the amount, the abundance of it,
of course,
in order to jack up the price. If oil, a barrel of oil and the price of the pump had kept in step with the inflation, we should be paying about 60, 70 cents right now. Last time I did crunch the numbers and did some research on it, 60, 70 cents.
Right.
I mean, but in Michigan, what do we have? 34 or 43 cents gas tax?
Something like that,
It's ridiculous.
Well, when
and
you
our
look
roads are still shit.
And it's so funny because when you look at the prices of gas, and I started paying attention to this about 20, 25 years ago or so.
Right.
Of the gas prices. And look this up. Don't take my word for it. In so many different cases, depending on who was in office and who was running this place from a political standpoint, is how high the gas part shot up for any petroleum-based products.
Right.
And then who passed all this legislation. I mean, here's the thing. When you look at it, inflation, cost of living,
yep,
manufacturing, distribution, all of this stuff for petroleum-based products. On point where we were going, gas should be around the United States $5 to $6 a gallon, right?
Okay.
Look at the numbers. Don't take my word for
it.
Right now, you go to a gas station and it's what, $2.20, $2.30?
Okay.
A gallon. When you look at the stuff in the 90s,
right,
the 2000s, and in the
but that's what I was saying is if we there's one aspect to going it that way,
right?
But if we actually look at the amount that is available,
of course,
then we should be at 60, 70, maybe 80 cents a gallon at the pump, because there's so much abundance.
Of course.
So they artificially suppress the amount that's available, and then they look at it and go, yeah, it should be $5 or $6 a gallon, and you go, yeah, if you suppress it, if you hold it back.
See, and that's where I subscribe to a lot of the ideologies that Tesla had. Instead of jumping on the bandwagon, because Tesla got all kinds of shade thrown on him from Edison.
Yeah.
Because, well, he's a discounted hack. Yet, when you look at the standard...
Edison fried elephants with AC power to try to prove how dangerous it was.
Oh, yeah. Well, the electric chair was invented to discredit Nikola Tesla from Thomas Edison.
Right, because Edison had DC power. And
here's the ideologist that I'm talking about with Nikola Tesla. He understood that the power for all of these fossil fuel companies were going to go unchecked. So he said, all right, let's work together to create a greener form of industry.
Well, his problem was that he knew how much abundance there was, energy supply within the earth,
Right.
and said we can tap into that,
And did on several
and
occasions.
provide free energy for everybody.
Right.
And
J.P. Morgan
you
said,
can't
well, we're
make
going to put the
money.
meter.
Yeah, you can't make money for that.
Right.
You know, you got to put a stick in the ground and just pull it from the atmosphere. Based on your invention. Yeah.
That's exactly
How
what
do
it was.
how do I make money off that?
Right.
Well, we need to make it free for everybody. It's an abundant resource. It needs to be
Right.
made free for everybody. He was like, yeah, no, shut it down. Eventually tore down Wardenclyffe.
Right.
You know, and so there's, yeah.
But that was the thing, though, is doing things in moderation instead of jumping on the bandwagon with what the popular belief is.
Right.
I mean, you look at any utility company, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they supply bread for these people that work at these places.
Right.
You know, they have raised thousands of families on the resources and incomes, and that's great.
Yeah.
I support that. If your responsibility is to take care of your family,
Yeah.
and take care of yourself and those responsibilities and obligations you have. However, if you can have a better way, why aren't you doing that?
Right.
I mean, look at the countless hours that you and I have done the typical 9 to 5 stuff that we were away from our families. We sacrificed times of sitting at, dinner with our families because we had to work late at the office or we had to work late in the shop or whatever it was.
Right.
And we can't get those hours back.
Right.
However, we were providing for our families. Mm-hmm. So the popular belief was, and you and I both heard this going through school, you graduate school, you go to college, you get the typical delusion of a white picket fence, barbecue, 2.5 cats, 4.5 kids, beautiful trophy Stepford wife.
Dogs, wasn't cats.
Whatever. The point being,
Hey.
but, that was the ideology that we were supposed to subscribe through.
Right.
I also remember being in 10th grade going to a assembly and they going, okay, well, you guys are from the same generation. And they go, you're going to change careers 7 to 10 times in your adult life.
Right.
Well, then why the hell am I going to college for something that is not going to be even a thing?
And spend all of that money.
And be in debt.
And be in debt for something that I'm going to change in 7 years.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or change 7 to 10 times.
College is another bandwagon, dude.
Right. And see, that's the thing. Frank Zappa said it best. I love the quote that he said. You want a social experience? Go to college.
Right.
You want an education? Go to the library.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's the Goodwill Hunting
Right.
line, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's like, $150 in late fees.
Right.
And you spend, a couple $100,000.
Right.
Going to college. And,
Right.
and I mean, it's work of fiction again, but it's a truth.
There's the truth
In
there.
that.
And that's the funny part about it is how many times have we gone out of our way to go to the library?
Right.
That is a public, renewable resource that isn't supported by the popular belief to go in and, get a degree by putting yourself through the paces and educating yourself on various different things. I mean, that's how I discovered, natural selection. Do I support it? No, not really.
No.
But it's an incredible eye-opener. And once your eyes have been open,
Yeah.
you're going, oh,
This is crazy.
why are people subscribing to this when it was just based off cataloging insects from one generation to the next? And now you're putting
Well,
this...
because it's the bandwagon, and we're looking for any reason to get rid of the idea of God, to dismiss that concept
Right.
of God. That's the dynamic. Is we want any justification to get rid of the concept of God.
Well, look at the convoluted ideology of we are meant to be together, to converse, to talk, and help grow and mature.
Right.
But yet, there's all of these things. I mean, I look at the line from The Fifth Element with Lilu, and she's, why is it everything that you
Why do you
create,
you try to destroy?
you try to destroy?
Right.
Or is used to destroy.
Is used to, yeah.
All of these things are created and jumping on the bandwagon is meant to separate us, to divide us.
Absolutely.
As opposed to unite us and go, well, wait a minute. This is bigger than all of us. And if we're not, helping each other,
Right.
moving forward, going, educate yourself. do not stop educating. John Taylor Gatto was one of the ones that you brought up.
Absolutely.
And
Love
that guy said he was a teacher in Spanish Harlem. Mm-hmm. One of the
toughest,
yet worst places you could ever teach. Mm-hmm. And these kids
were thriving under his.
Well, it was 1% of 1% that was actually graduating.
Right.
He worked with them for, what did he say? I think it was 5 years. Mm-hmm. And each one of these kids were thriving, and they're like, whoa, what are you doing?
Right. He won Teacher of the Year, I think it was 89, 90, and 91.
Right.
And after he won in 91 Teacher of the Year, he wrote an op-ed and said, I have to quit.
Right.
Because people are figuring out that I'm not teaching the status quo curriculum that they're giving me.
Right.
He said, I'm teaching what these kids, their aptitude. One kid was into comic books. So he said, okay, your assignment for this semester is to go and study all the comic books and turn in this comic books. And he says, in the process, they'll learn to read, write, do arithmetic, but these other subjects that they're never going to use because it's not their aptitude.
Right.
Why do they need anything other than a general overview of these things? Right. You know, the gal that did the cataloging for all that, she was a swimmer. She got up at 4 or 5 in the morning and would do her swimming, and she was trying to be an Olympic swimmer.
Right.
And he said, okay, I want you to go to all the pools in the metropolitan area, catalog the pools, their chlorine content, the size of the pool, the capacity of the area where the pool is, the amount of people that can be in there at one time, the diving boards, everything like that. She went through all of those dynamics, wrote it all up, and the library wanted her information. Yeah. And she came back to her teacher, to John Taylor Gatto, and said, Mr. Gatto, what do I do? And he says, tell him you want X amount of money for it.
Right.
And she's like, really? And he goes, did you do the work?
Right.
She's like, yeah. And are they asking for it? She goes, yeah. He goes, then tell them you want. I think it was like $500 or something for all that amount of work that she did. She's like, okay. But so she did all that work. Of course, her writing, arithmetic, her math, all that stuff, those factors came into it.
Right.
And so, but there's that dynamic of the bandwagon is to teach whatever they're trying to do in school. Right. It's amazing how much they push that garbage, whatever garbage it is. They push and push and push and push to get everybody to jump on board with it, the sight word readings instead of phonics.
Oh, good Lord.
I mean, it's like, dude, teach kids how to sound out fucking words already.
It's hilarious how you just brought that up because the thought that popped into my head. My grandmother was one of those very simple. She was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
It was reading, writing, and arithmetic. Those were the things that she pushed. If you can't read, how do you know you're drinking poison?
Right.
If you can't go through and add 1 + 1, how do you know how to measure stuff?
Right.
When it comes to cooking. And it was so funny, and I hated reading because I was one of those kids that had a comprehension issue. I could read a paragraph 72 times
and not get it all.
And have no idea what it said.
Same here.
So the bandwagon belief at that point in time, how I taught myself how to read better was I played Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Now, because it was something that I was interested in,
yep,
I would read every single Dungeons and Dragons book I could get because it was a game. It was a fantasy game. Yet the popular belief at that point in time is, oh, you're starting a satanic cult and you're worshiping Satan and doing human sacrifices. And I'm going, because I'm teaching myself how to read better?
Right. I'm using whatever catalyst is in front of me to get something accomplished.
Oh, yeah. I was one of those because I'm starting my own satanic cult and I'm exploring dungeons and, sacrificing virgins. And I'm going,
that's not it at all.
I'm just trying to teach myself to read better because you assholes say I have to know how to read and be able to present what it is that I'm reading and understand it. You want me to understand it? Good. I'm not worshiping Satan. I'm shooting my magic missile at the darkness. I mean, seriously.
Right.
This is preposterous. But the bandwagon mentality was, that's what you were doing.
Yeah.
You weren't trying to better yourself.
Well, they didn't that's the problem with the bandwagon is people who are on the bandwagon have not studied. They just jumped on board. They haven't educated themselves. They just jumped on board.
Right.
And that's the problem. And I'll take one for, we mentioned it in one of the other ones, Appeal to Authority. We talked about 9/11.
Right.
And, in order to get everybody to get on board with fighting terrorism, which is an endless...
it's like the war on drugs.
It's a war on, like the war on drugs. It's endless.
Right.
And so how do we do that? And they even have it in the, it's the papers, I'm trying to think of the name, It'll come to me in a minute. But they drew up. They said short of some catastrophic catalyst, some catastrophic event,
right.
you can't rally
right.
all the people. You can't get all the people to jump on the bandwagon unless you have some Pearl Harbor type. That was what it said.
Exactly.
Pearl Harbor type event.
That's where I was going to go with that.
The Pearl Harbor type event was literally Pearl Harbor. The Gulf of Tonkin affair, which was proved to be, not only was it a false flag, but it didn't even happen.
Right.
They made it completely up.
Right.
And then you look at 9/11, all of the stuff. And again, the problem with 9/11, my major problem is they never did a proper investigation. If you don't do a proper investigation, how do you say that the situation, what it is? Well, here's our report. Okay, your report is based on what? If you didn't do an investigation, you can't do the NTSB. Give me a report on it. And they go, well, these guys came up with this. Well, all of these other independent people that aren't on the bandwagon and believe in the bullshit story coming out, okay, well, those are just conspiracy theorists. Well, if two people got together and conspired, and my theory has any validity, then I guess I'm a conspiracy theorist because I'm theorizing that your theory that you have not proved, you've just put out the bandwagon appeal to authority type of thing. That's what you've put out, and I'm challenging it, but you want to then go into any of the other logical fallacies where you attack the character of the person, well, these people aren't experts.
Right.
Yeah, but they did all the tests live, or they recorded the tests as they did them without editing, without any interruptions, and you can see it. They've taken the actual video footage, and they've gone, look, this is free fall.
Right.
There's no way that these buildings don't fall from free fall. Right. You know how many people don't know about Building 7?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
2 planes hit, supposedly.
Right.
They go, what? Supposedly? We're going to get real deep as you get to know this brain on this show. 2 planes supposedly hit the towers, right? Something happened. Not as Ilhan Omar says, some people did something. No, some pretty wicked people did some stuff in order to make some money. Because Silverstein renegotiated the lease on that building like a month before. And because they hit the 2 main buildings, he went for twice. So they had a policy of so many $1 billion.
Interesting.
And he went for it twice because they knocked down 2 towers. Tried to get that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot of shady shit going on. Anyways, Building 7 was never hit by anything.
Right.
And you're talking about a steel building, a steel and concrete building, okay? Right. And when you look up any other steel building in history, in third world countries, these shitty steel buildings, okay, that burn for a week and never collapse.
Of course.
But the World Trade Center burned for less than 6 hours. Number 7, World Trade Center 7 burned for less than 6 hours. Concrete and steel building with fire suppression all over the fucking place. Everywhere. Right? Fire retardant ceiling tiles, fire retardant this. So all you had was basically the paper in the file cabinets and some of the tops of the desks. Okay? And maybe some of the divider walls. The rest of it's all steel, concrete, cement, everything, right?
Rebar.
And yet this building collapsed at almost free fall speed. With very little resistance. You don't have a building collapse like that and have little to no resistance because every time a floor falls, it hits the other one and slows down, hits that one and slows down, hits that. It's precipitous. You slowly, it slows down as it gets further and further because you're pancaking. But when you blow out the columns, now all of a sudden it just drops like an implosion. And I go, everybody jumps, the vast majority of people at the beginning jumped on the bandwagon. And what was the whole purpose? It wasn't just knocking down those buildings. It was to get us into these endless wars because there's billions, if not trillions of dollars to be made in war.
When you look at it, how many innocent people were just wiped from existence because someone wanted to make a buck?
We've killed over 1 million people in Iraq. And I remember standing there when we lived in Vassar, and having discussions with buddies, and I finally came to the realization because I jumped on it. I saw those towers fall. I was there. I was literally at work.
So was I.
And my first wife calls me and she says, "Are you listening to the news?" And I said, "Yeah, we were listening to 760 AM."
Right.
And it got done with Paul W. Smith's show or whatever it was, right? And it was going to go into the next show. And I think the guys on the job site were like, let's switch it to a rock and roll station or whatever.
Right.
We're like, okay. So we go to switch it to this, the other station, and they go breaking news because it's right around, wasn't it like 9:17 or something like that?
Yeah.
So we hadn't quite switched the radio over yet.
Right.
And I couldn't stand listening to the morning shows on the rock stations because they're just dick and fart jokes all the time. And I go, I wanted to hear something constructive to edify my brain. But anyways, we're hearing this. We're like, apparently a plane has impacted the South Tower of the World Trade Center, and we're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And then when the second plane hit, and then my wife's calling, and she's like, Are you watching? I'm watching this. Are you seeing this? Are you watching this? I'm getting the kids. I'm going to get the kids out of school. I'm going to get the. I mean, it was just, and that's how. Yeah. And so we went for a good 3 to 6 months after that, dealing with the aftermath, and then it began to settle down a little bit. But we had these immediate resolutions of war that were drawn up before the event.
Homeland Security.
The Patriot Act was drawn up before.
Yep.
Anything happened.
Yep.
The declaration to go into Afghanistan was drawn up before September 11th.
Right.
It wasn't done up afterwards.
Look this up.
Look this shit up, dude.
All of this stuff. There's a paper trail for all of this. This is not speculation. This is not conspiracy theorists bouncing stuff back and forth and feeding each other's egos on it. No, look this stuff up. It is all there. You're going to have to dig for some of this stuff. But it is all there. Everything that we were talking about is factual stuff that happened.
And
it's
amazing, they had this catalyst to get everybody onto the bandwagon.
Of course,
we've got to go back. And I know, as students of history, that in World War I and in World War II, we were isolationists.
Yes,
we did not want to get involved in foreign wars.
Right,
and that's constitutional.
Right.
And Jefferson talked about it. He said, if we will get ourselves into a lot of trouble. I'm paraphrasing. Right. Look that up. He says basically, our country, it'll be one of the things that could bring our country down to be entangled in foreign. What did he say? To become entangled in foreign war. He doesn't say wars, but he says foreign engagements of some type.
Yes.
But he's basically saying we need to stay out of any external conflicts, and we need to focus on the internal.
Because he understood, being the world's policeman, it was a never-ending job.
It is, and you're never going to do it right because you can't force people unless something comes organically.
Right.
From within.
Right.
You're not going to get the catalyst to bring about. I mean, the Civil War in this country, or not the Civil War, the Revolutionary War was organic from within. We saw things that were going on. Please read the Declaration of Independence.
Yes.
Because if you read the Declaration of Independence and then you contrast and compare what the government today is doing, we should have rebelled against the government a long time ago because what King George was doing compared to what the U.S. government's doing with the CIA and the NSA and the Secret Service and the Patriot Act and all these other things,
Homeland Security,
far beyond what King George was doing. He was literally wanting to tax them, and then not let him have a say on the tax. That's what the Boston Tea Party was about. They're like, oh, you're going to tax the tea coming in here, but you won't give us a say on our own representation?
Yeah.
No taxation without representation.
Exactly.
And so they go back to this. But again, World War I, World War II, there was this bandwagon effect because there was a catalyst to get us out of our isolationist mentality and to get us entangled in these foreign wars.
Well, and when you look at it, going back to the point of the bandwagon mentality, when you have those catastrophic events that immediately draw a line in the sand, you have loss of innocent life, for a buck.
Yeah.
You have people that their lives are irreversibly changed because they lost a mother, they lost a father, they lost a child, they lost a grandmother, they lost a grandfather.
Yeah.
And they have to move forward. That is so mentally and emotionally taxing.
Yep.
To where it's like, I just want everything to shut up. Fine, I'll go along with whatever.
Right.
Because of that grief process. And I mean, I was on a call floor of 350 people. We're calling New York City when all that stuff went down for 9/11.
Wow.
And people are getting pissed at us. Do you know what's going on? And I'm like, no, I'm doing my job to support my family.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, they flipped on the news in the main conference room. And they're like, shut the call floor down and come look at this.
Right.
And I went, holy cow, what's actually going on?
Right.
And I mean, my thing is if you're going to band together and jump on the bandwagon, do it to empower people. Do it to make everyone's existence a little better. Educate someone. Reach out to them and go, hey, I see you're stumbling. I see you're struggling.
Right.
Okay, try it this way. It may work, it may not, but don't be afraid to get out there, ask the questions. That should be the status quo.
Right.
I'm going to challenge you to educate yourself. I'm going to challenge you to, have a random act of kindness and go, hey, I see you're struggling with something.
Yep.
How can we band together and help each other, as opposed to, well, you've got tattoos and earrings. You're different than me, so you're one of them. Wait a minute here.
Them?
Really?
And us and we?
Right.
Yeah. No, whatever. The tactic has always been to divide and conquer.
Right.
And then at the same time, you divide and conquer, and then get everybody, once they're conquered, to get on the bandwagon of whatever you're promoting to bring this false sense of unity. What? But you've never educated anybody on what you're unifying over.
Look at the Battle of Thermopylae, right?
Right.
Okay. That's where we get the movie...
the 300.
300.
Right.
Okay, was it King Leonidas and 300 of his finest soldiers?
299.
299, whatever. The point being is that...
If he's the part of the 300.
Right.
Just say.
Shut up. But yeah, they were united under one cause.
Right.
Because they knew there was a threat.
Right.
What was it, the
Xerxes.
Persians?
Yeah.
Yeah, Xerxes and the Persian army knew, the Spartans knew that if they didn't stand to defend, and they knew they were all hit.
Right.
What was it, like 500,000 soldiers?
Right.
Against 300.
Yeah, they had to make their stand, and they chose the right place to do it.
Right.
In that pass.
And yet all the other city-states of Greece saw this, and went, "We're not gonna do this."
Right.
Yet when every single one of those Spartans
sacrificed themselves,
they went, "Oh, this is a real threat."
Right.
So you're telling me 300 people?
Yeah, that was the catalyst to get everybody else involved.
Right. 300 people who knew that they were most certainly going to their death.
Right.
To defend themselves, and the bandwagon mentality of, we're not going to be bothered with any of that. They're not coming here to do all of this stuff.
Right.
Yet when you look at Persia's history and look this up, educate yourself on this. This was true events that actually happened. It wasn't a Hollywood movie with creative licenses and so on and so forth, adjusting history. This actually happened. The Battle of Thermopylae. Look it up. It's incredible of what was going on in the political platforms in Greece at that point in time. But it was so incredible that 300 men warded off 500,000 Persians.
Right.
And then the rest of the Greek city-states united and went, oh, this is serious. We should probably do something about this.
Right.
Okay. So if, say, you and I, for instance, are going to be that 300 to go, educate yourself. Stop submitting or giving credence to the status quo of jumping on the bandwagon of, the authority one. I'm drawing a blank.
Appeal to authority.
Appeal to authority.
Right.
Don't do that. Don't be like, well, everybody else is doing it, so I might as well do that.
Well, that's
too.
what they do with the logical fallacies is you use one and piggyback onto another and another and another and another and another until it's like you've never researched this. You've never studied this. So I was just thinking that I don't want people to believe what I believe.
Right.
But at the same time, I want people to believe what I believe. And by this, what I mean is,
right.
I don't want you to believe what I believe because I believe it. I want you to believe what I believe because I believe that I've done a vast amount of research, or at least enough to have a stable opinion or position on whatever I'm talking about. I think you'll come to the vast majority of the conclusions that I've come to because I came to them from an educated place. Now, does that mean I'm not going to keep growing and alter things and change things?
Right.
When I teach, you've heard me teach it in church where I say, if you're not willing to challenge your beliefs as a believer,
point that I was just going to go to.
If you're not willing to challenge your beliefs as a believer, challenge what you think in Scripture, challenge what you've been told from the pulpit. If you're not willing to challenge that to the point of potentially destroying that belief,
Right.
then it's no more valid than the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus. You have to be willing to challenge those beliefs in a true investigative. When you come up with a scientific theory,
Right.
you present that theory. If you're doing it correctly, you're not doing it like they do nowadays, where they put out a premise and then they try to figure out how they can support their premise. No,
Right.
you put out a theory, you propose a theory,
Right.
and then you do everything you can do to challenge that theory,
Right.
and get it out of the way. It's either you're going to prove it or you're going to destroy it.
Right.
You're either going to validate it or completely invalidate it. And so when you're going through that, that's the same thing with faith, whatever it is. I don't lose my relationship with God by challenging the scriptures, challenging what I've been taught from the pulpit, challenging my held beliefs. There's been a couple different things. In fact, I believed something. It was out of Corinthians for a long time. I'm reading it and I'm believing it for years, right?
Right.
And it wasn't a big pillar of faith, but it was definitely something there. And all of a sudden one day I'm in prayer and I'm going through this. The Lord brings that one to my attention. I'm like, okay. So I flip over my Bible there and I'm reading through it and I go, wait a minute. And I'm looking at it and I go, this actually means such and such. And he goes, yep. And I go, why didn't you tell me this until now? This is exactly the opposite way that I was thinking about this. And he goes, because it wasn't important until now.
Right.
And I'm like, but Lord, I've said stuff based on this.
Right.
That now has been at least partially invalidated. What the hell, dude? And he's like, you're all good. It wasn't important at the time, and you needed to grow in this place where you could handle the true revelation of that thing.
See, and that's the point that I was just getting ready to jump onto when you started talking about that. I've seen you firsthand experience, regardless of what it was you were teaching or what kind of conversation you were having with people. You say, I encourage you in a very healthy manner to challenge me.
Right.
Do the due diligence.
Yep.
If you disagree with me, fine. Challenge me respectfully.
Respectfully, because if I'm bringing something to the table,
right,
I've probably studied it for, I don't know, 5-10 years.
Right.
Generally. If there's some things that I have still never taught in a church service.
Right.
That I've studied for 30 years now.
Right.
Okay. There's other things that.
Song of Solomon.
Yeah. We'll get to that one. But I mean, when we were doing full-time ministry, church ministry, I remember Pastor Ken coming up to me after service and he goes, dude, what was that?
Right.
He goes, I've never heard you even broach this subject.
Right.
And you just taught a whole message and you've blown my mind. He's like, I have to get the CD myself. And I was sitting in service reading the scriptures for you.
Right.
And asking a couple of questions here and there as you're teaching.
Of course.
And he goes, I have to go and listen to this about 5 or 10 times because what you just taught on, I've never heard you even speak of before.
Right.
And we had that's 6-7 years into our relationship
of course,
not just relationship as people, but our relationship on the platform.
Of course.
And he's going, I never heard you talk about that before. And I go, it wasn't time to teach on it.
Of course.
And if you're going to be trusted with the secret things of God, then you have to be able to wait until it's the right time that the wine has matured to the right point that you can serve it, And so there's that dynamic but again, challenge. I always say to people, I'm like, yeah, if you, in fact, I like it when people come up and challenge in an honoring manner because then I can explore that with them, explain some stuff, and sometimes I even get into a deeper revelation of it by explaining that, by going through the dialogue and saying, well, this, and this, and I go, and then this is the next logical step. But I hadn't taken that next logical step until somebody said, well, why?
Right.
And I go, okay, let's explore why. But again, it's an honorable way because you understand.
Absolutely.
When I want to know about music editing and guitars and how to set up a guitar and how to do, there's a number of things that I go, you know what? Ask Tony. We had a discussion about just vocals the other day.
Yeah.
And I said, dude, my voice is, I got to work more on my, because I'm getting raspy and not being able to get back to my normal level. And you're like, dude, are you drinking just straight room temperature water? And I went, dude, I know that, but thank you. I know that, but I'm over here drinking, either ice water or something else cold. And when I'm singing, I have to drink water that is the temperature of the water or temperature of the room.
Right.
In order to keep the vocal cords,
Warm and loose.
Warm and loose. And so, anyway, when we're talking about the ideas of the bandwagon, it's like you don't take what we're saying verbatim.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to walk into everything with a skeptical mindset, but the same, you have trusted sources.
Of course.
Of people that aren't trying to lead you astray. I think that's the biggest thing with
that's the thing. In the same token, don't be afraid to challenge that stuff. If we say something and we're expounding on a point, I guarantee not all of it is going to be factual based. Some of it's going to be our opinions through experience of the process of educating ourselves. Yes, you can draw so many different conclusions based off a factual based opinion.
Yeah.
To go, like you said, this is the next logical step without having to do the research.
Right.
However, I encourage you to do the research. So even if you disagree with us or there is that challenge respectfully set forth, to do that due diligence and go, well, they said this. They were incorrect with that. And, I try to do my best to say, well, I'm paraphrasing here horribly, but please look it up. I implore you to educate yourself on it so when you sit down at this table with us, we can agree to disagree because I've not got that far in my education.
Right.
Or I have.
Right.
And it's simple. It's a simple matter of difference of opinion because for, 7.4 billion people on the face of the planet?
Right.
There's 7.4 billion different perspectives that if you're all encompassing and going, okay, I don't agree with that, but tell me more.
Right.
Help educate me on what your perspective is because from multiple perspectives you can gain so much insight.
I have one of my guys on my crew and he's an older guy. He's the oldest guy on our crew. And he likes to interject his opinion.
Yeah.
Now I'm working with him. And I've learned over the years, the Lord taught me years ago, a fool delights in airing his own opinion.
Of course.
Right? And it's to a man's glory to keep his tongue, to keep his peace. And a fool is considered wise if he holds his tongue.
Right.
And so there's several other proverbs. Read Proverbs a day according to the date.
Good
today
stuff.
is, as we're recording today, what's the 13th?
Yeah, 13th.
So read Proverbs 13 today. I encourage it's fast, very fast. In fact, I've taken to where I just listen to it on my phone and I go through it in about a half an hour.
Audio Bible YouTube.
Exactly. Well, I download them too.
Yeah.
But my point is that I'm dealing with this person and I've taken to where instead of just dismissing him out of hand,
right?
Because I don't want to invalidate him as a person, but his suggestion may be, and so I've taken to this tact with him where I go, explain to me your logic. He'll bring up something on the job site, and I'll go, explain to me your logic. And usually, in the process of trying to explain how he got to that conclusion and why we should do something different than what we're doing it with, he can't walk back. It's just something that popped into his head. And I'm like, okay, if you can't explain to me why this is a logical thing we could do and better than what we're doing now, then I have to dismiss your suggestion.
I've said that countless over the years of help me understand your perspective.
That's a great way to say it too. Absolutely.
I mean, that's the thing is, everybody has a slightly different perspective based on where you're standing. I mean, there was a neat little test that we had done, something as simple as this. Okay, so pen, right?
Correct.
You're seeing this side, I'm seeing this side. Explain to me what you see on that side of the pen.
I see the shaft. I see the clip.
Okay.
And the push button and the rings.
Well, that's wrong because I see white and I see letters and I see, a hook on the bottom of this part right here. That's wrong.
It's all perspective.
Right. It's all perspective. Yet you turn the pen around.
Yeah. And now I can see the letters that you weren't seeing.
And I can see the side that you weren't seeing.
Did you say they were white? Because those look like gray, like an off.
Exactly. That's my point. It's simply a matter of perspective of where you're standing. So sometimes you have to change where you're standing. I mean, I don't know if you can see that on the camera there.
But
yeah, I see it here, like this.
Yeah, so there's letters on there.
Yeah.
We're not advertising them, but there's letters on there.
Right, but it's simply a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
That where you're standing, sometimes you need to shift where you're standing.
Right.
And go, oh, that's what you're seeing. Okay? And immediately we jump on that bandwagon of, no, you're wrong, because that's not what I see.
Right.
It's like, whoa.
Right.
Let's change perspectives here for a
minute.
So
part of this definition of the bandwagon from the website says you appealed to popularity.
Right.
And that's a big thing. Again, we got the catalyst of the towers coming down, and that gets us into an endless war on terrorism, which is a non-entity. The terrorists don't wear uniforms. They don't have standing armies. They don't. They're terrorists. They hide out and they have an organization, right? But how do you negotiate with a group of people, or when are we going to have a ceasefire in this war on terror? Never are, because there's always going to be some catalyst. And then when you have
new form of guerrilla war tactics.
Yeah, and then we have this nefarious elements in the government that will do false flags,
of course,
that will do things that, and then say, "Oh, that was the terrorists," and they go, "Really, that was the terrorists?" Because there's a bunch of stuff that you're not telling us, and the news coming out of this is pretty hinky. It's jacked up. What's really going on here? And they go, "Well, terrorists." I love the montage that they do for that when they have right after 9/11 was the terrorists and terrorists and terrorists, and it's all single clips, not repeated, of the president and Secretary of State and National Security head and everybody talking about how the terrorists, and it fit their model, it fit their agenda of what they wanted to do, and so they made it popular. So that everybody would jump on the bandwagon. It was almost a unanimous vote to go to war in Afghanistan.
It was like, what was it? Was it 4 out of 5 majority? I think it was.
I think it was more than that. I think there was only like 2 senators or 2 representatives that dissented. But it was pretty overwhelming. And I go, to get us into war, based on an incident in a country you had. According to the government's own report, 15 of the 19 terrorists were Saudi Arabian. And yet we went to Afghanistan. And then Iraq. But we never addressed Saudi Arabia.
Well, no, because we do oil exchange and trade with them.
Yeah, and we have bases there, and there's all sorts of stuff. So, again, they appeal to popularity, whatever's popular. And so I watch the news, and I watch.
See, I can't watch the news.
No, I say that. I say that in general.
Right. Oh no, I follow you.
It's like when I get on my computer and I pull up. I got to go check my mail, and I pull up Yahoo. The homepage. So that I can get to my mail. And I see all the articles on there, and I just briefly glance over the articles, and I'm like, really? And I do the hide this one. I don't want to see this one. I don't want to see this one. I don't want to see this one. Not because I don't want to be educated, but most of the time it's bullshit.
Of course.
And you can read by the title, you're like, what?
Well, what was it when it was shortly after Trump got into office? They were showing from one side of New York City to the other side of New York City the exact same paper headline that was completely different from one to the other. The exact same article.
Yeah.
And
they've done so many compilations where they take and they go and they grab news clip from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, everybody, and then they play them all simultaneously, and they're almost word for word saying the same exact stuff, and it's like, are you kidding me? If this isn't orchestrated, and it's to get to a place where we have this appeal to popularity. If we can make this narrative popular, then we've got everybody on the bandwagon, right? Trump colluded with the Russians. No, the Clintons went over and did uranium sales to the Russians, and they were doing all sorts of Russian deals. What you say about your enemy is generally what you're doing.
Well, and that's the thing is when you look at what that popular status quo is to divide. Absolutely.
You want to divide people from what is true and valid and what grounds them, and then you want to create a popularity. The Nazis are a huge one. Nazis, the Nationalist Socialist Party, but also the Communists. They thrived on the popularity of not the validity. In fact, that's what it says. Appeal to popularity of the fact that many people do something as an attempted form of validation. The only way we get to the validity of this thing is to make it popular and push it out there. And what did Goebbels is quoted as saying, Right. He said if we tell a lie loud, not Goebbels, it was a Goering. No, it was Goebbels.
Okay.
Yeah. If we tell a lie, it's generally ascribed to Hitler, but it was actually Goebbels as the propaganda minister.
Yeah.
Propaganda minister, who said if we tell a lie loud enough and long enough, people will believe it.
Right.
And in fact he went even further to say that if we make it outrageous, or over the top, or a little bit beyond true reality, that it has even more appeal because it's fanciful.
Of course,
it's exciting. It's above, and that was the whole premise of what the Nazis did. We need to take back our homeland, and we need room to grow, and we need room to stretch.
Mind you, Hitler was elected into office.
To be the, what was he under? He was elected in, and then he maneuvered to get rid of the chancellor.
Now, here's the great part about this, and I don't think anybody is really, if they had, it hasn't been on a platform like this, talked about. No one anywhere in history has ever said, yeah, it's cool to be a Nazi.
No. Well,
the popular
except the Nazis when they were there.
Right, but that's the thing is the popular belief is, okay, you're a Nazi. There is a stigma that comes with that has a huge history. Look at Dachau, Auschwitz.
Right.
Any of these just heinous acts against
a group of people. But here's the thing that I'm saying is the Nazis in their I don't want to call it their heyday, in their reign of power, yes, while they were in charge, had a complete bandwagon mentality over the German people,
and were validated by that because they were defending the motherland.
And it was okay, we say, well, it's popularity because it was at the gun. No, there were a lot of people that just went for the nationalism aspect and didn't have to be intimidated. There were very few people that resisted that. And that's the biggest danger to me of the bandwagon is you've got something that's made popular and then it's validated by the amount of people that followed it, and it could be absolutely, completely flawed and wrong. And yet people want to jump on that. And so you say it with communism, you say it with National Socialism during World War II, with Hitler and all of the.
Well, it comes down to God and country.
Yeah.
Even though the God that was established at that point in time was fascism, was
absolutely you were worshiping the state.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not a true German, then you're one of them. If you're not for me, then you're automatically against me.
And that's some of the stuff that when I look back at it, just 6 months into it, and I look back at W's President Bush.
Oh yeah,
his speech. He's like, if you're not with us, then you're with the terrorists. I'm like, that's another argument that we'll go over. That's over on the wall, the black and white. That there's only two extremes in this. And I go, okay, you know what?
So if I'm not with you,
if I'm not with you, then I'm with the terrorists. You have not proven to me or the American people the conclusions that you're coming up with. You've not proven who these people were. Wait a minute. The fires burned so damn hot that it destroyed 210-story skyscrapers. But the passports of 19 terrorists landed in the street in pristine condition, or landed on the roofs of the other buildings that didn't collapse in pristine condition.
Interesting.
Look that one up. That's exactly right. They're like, we have the passports of these guys. Okay, wait a minute. The plane, you say plane, and we have the video footage, but there's some... Watch the footage real close. Look up some stuff. Because it doesn't make sense. Anyways, so the video shows the plane hitting, demolishes into the side of the building, blows out in flames, but paper and plastic passports. I have a passport. I could light that sumbitch on fire right now and it'd be gone. Okay. This is not a chunk of metal. And even the metal in the
was melted.
Was melted. So there's something. Jet fuel burns at what was it, 1,200?
Something like that.
1,400, and metal melts at 2,800.
Look
up the exact numbers. It doesn't work. Even with a fireball and a huge explosion, a full fuel tank, it's instantaneous. It blows up. It's hot enough in the moment. It destroys a lot of stuff, but it's not going to melt metal. Anyways, but that's the popularity of it, is to say, if you're not with us, then you're with the terrorists. It's like, oh, so you want me to jump on your bandwagon, or what? I'm either I'm with the Jedi or the Sith. It's like only. I love the way Lucas put that in there.
Yeah.
In 2005.
Yeah.
Like 4 years after 9/11.
Of course.
He's like, if you're not with me, then you're my enemy. And he's like, only a Sith speaks in absolutes.
Right.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I'm like,
right.
Dude, only the people with a twisted agenda.
Right.
I won't even say you're totally evil, but with a twisted agenda says it's either absolutely this or I'm going against you. And you go, really?
I think it's exploiting the darkness that's in us of going, well, okay, well, if you don't stand for something, you're to fall for anything. Okay, but wait a minute here. Hold on. How about instead of appealing to the darkness
right.
in us to divide and to conquer and to separate and create division, educate
yourself,
empower people to go, okay,
absolutely.
Sometimes you're going to have to stand
by
yourself.
Right.
And that's okay. Don't go, oh, that idiot's out in the field with an umbrella saying it's going to rain. Okay. If he's an idiot, cool. Go and have a conversation with him. Why are you standing out in the middle of the field with an umbrella?
Right.
Because it's going to rain. Yet everybody else is running around putting out fires going, well, all we need is rain. What is that?
There it is. Okay, so Nate pulled it up. Right. Construction grade steel burns at, you guys are seeing that, 2,795 degrees Fahrenheit. Jet fuel does not burn this hot. Its maximum temperature is 1472.
That's almost 1,000 degrees difference.
And that's the thing is they found they had metal months later in the bottom, in the basements of the World Trade Center that was still molten, that was still on fire and melting.
Yeah.
The only way you do that is with thermite and some of the other chemicals that they had on there.
RDK.
It's like, dude, come on. And that's the crazy thing is that's what we're talking about is it was all there was a whole bunch of factors, but one of the factors was this appeal to popularity.
Right.
The terrorists did this, and we got to have a war on terrorism. And then you begin to, what's temperature is thermite? It's approximately 2,500 degrees Celsius, not accounting for preheating other factors. Thermite is estimated to burn 3 times hotter than molten lava. Yeah, that'll melt.
Oh, yeah.
That'll melt some steel. Now, it's only 200 degrees or 300 degrees almost off of actual melting steel. But the reality is you've got other factors. If you can get that to burn at 2,500.
Look up the temperature of RDK. What does that burn at?
So,
which is another military grade explosive.
Exactly. And again, it's this appeal to popularity to get everybody on the bandwagon. Why? Because they wanted for years to run a pipeline through Afghanistan, and the government there would not let them, wouldn't let Halliburton come in there and do it, wouldn't let the other agencies come in and do it. And lo and behold, as soon as we declared war on them, now the pipeline's going through.
Right.
And you can see it all over the place, dude.
Right.
Panama, we got to get rid of Noriega. And Noriega may have been a piece of shit dirtbag. May have been a piece of shit dirtbag, but he... there were other reasons we went into Panama.
Right.
And I had a buddy that was part of that.
I've got some friends that were special forces, and they were part of that Panama.
And they come back, and I go, dude, what was that all about? And he was like, it was bullshit. Dude.
Right.
It was bullshit.
Straight up
bullshit. It was
bullshit.
a straight-up coup to take out somebody we didn't like in order to control the drug flow because he didn't want to deal with us anymore and just turn over the drugs to the CIA.
Right.
They wanted something else going on. They wanted more control, and he wouldn't negotiate with them. And they're like, okay, dude, you don't want to negotiate with us? We'll invent a reason to take you out.
Right.
And they did that. It's like, are you kidding me? Yep. I mean, that's part of the reason they took out Kennedy is because he didn't want to go and invade Cuba.
Right.
You know? He's like, I don't want to invade Cuba. I don't even want to be in Vietnam. I don't want to be doing this shit. Let's see. So MAP gas is 28, 29, 80.
Right.
Where is the methane, natural gas, propane, polypropylene, acetylene, a blowtorch. Yeah. Hydrogen. Scroll down a little bit, Nate. Is that the end of the list? Yeah. Okay. Look up. The one is a solid. I know it's a solid because one of the things that they did right before 9/11 is they had these crews coming in.
Yeah.
And they were recoating the columns with fire retardant paint.
Right. Right.
and it burned so hot
Yeah.
that it melted the steel. Well,
Right.
if you've got it covered in fire-retardant paint, how is it melting the steel? And not only that,
Right.
the concrete was turned to powder, was turned to dust.
Right.
You don't have that's never happened before.
Right.
That's not a bandwagon. That's not listen. That's physically has never happened with any other building before in history,
Right.
but this one miraculously did this.
Right.
I'm going to question that.
Right.
And I would be completely invalidated in questioning it if they would have done an investigation. They didn't. The 9/11 report was not an investigation.
No.
It was a conclusion based on the material they were handed.
Right.
They were handed the reports by this group and the reports by this group and the reports by this group, and they looked at it and said, based on the reports that we were handed, not an actual thorough investigation,
Right.
and doing calling people in to testify,
Of course.
not by that,
Right.
okay, just by you handing a report. So if I go, hey, that car crashed into a tree over there because it was doing 60 miles an hour and the road was slippery, and I come back and go, well, according to the report that was given to us, it was raining that night, it was a little slippery, and they maintained that the car was doing 60 miles an hour.
Right.
Okay, so that's what happened.
Right.
And then you go back and you find out that a deer jumped in front of it, and the guy was doing 45 miles an hour, and it wasn't, it's like you find out there was other circumstances there. What do you got?
The utilizing fire paint for fireproofing needs is more than just adhering to building guidelines. It can mean life or death. The tragedy of 9/11 made the case for that point forever. And then it goes into the impact completely stripped the substances of their protective coating. When heated to 1,000 degrees, the steel loses half its strength. For instance, a beam supporting 2,000 tons could only support half the weight at 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, putting the entire structure at risk. The World Trade Center collapsed because it could no longer support itself, says Scott. The weight of the floors above the failure acted like a pile driver collapsing the floors below. The increase in momentum guaranteed the total destruction of the towers.
So even if we eliminate explosions in the building,
Right.
Secondary explosions,
Right.
the fire was contained on like 5 floors where the plane,
Right.
whatever hit, okay?
Right.
There's not enough fire in that thing, and they're saying it weakens it by half, right?
But that's still, you have at least half of the structural integrity.
Right. But you're talking about an initial fireball and explosion
Right.
of jet fuel.
Right.
Once that happens,
Right.
okay, I can go put lighter fluid on in my burn barrel back here.
Right.
Okay? Light it up.
Right.
There's going to be initial, well, if I'm using the right stuff, it doesn't do that anymore. But
Right.
old lighter fluid, you would,
Yeah.
and it goes up. You
You
pour a
wouldn't
little
have
gas on
any
it.
eyebrows left.
You pour a little gas on there. There's an initial,
Right.
but then there's a residual that's much lower.
Right.
Much cooler in the relativity of
Right.
an explosion. And that's what you had. You had an initial fireball with the plane hitting, and then you had much lower paper fires, desk fires,
Right.
your chairs melting,
Right.
Those are definitely not at 1,270 degrees
Right.
of jet fuel. It's a
Right.
much lower. And they're saying that what's the duration? What's the duration of 1,000 degrees on steel?
Right.
How long does it take 1,000 degrees of heat on steel to actually weaken the steel?
Right.
They can say 1,000 degrees of heat weakens the steel by half and causes a pancake effect. Okay, how long?
Right.
How long is this steel? If I'm going to bend a piece of metal over here with a torch,
Right.
all right, it takes me quite a while to heat it up.
Right. And
Not really. I mean, it doesn't take me forever, but I mean, I don't go and it's hot.
Right.
I have to heat it and heat it and heat it and get it nice and red,
Right.
and then it bends real easy, right? And it's like, I mean, just logically, the plane going into the buildings, initial burst of fire,
Right.
catches whatever's there in the offices that can burn on
Right.
fire. It's not burning at that temperature. And again, I'm saying that as somebody who's done the cursory research and looking at it from a standpoint of we have videos throughout the world
Right.
of skyscrapers that caught fire. They weren't hit with a plane.
Right.
They caught fire and burned for a week
Right.
and didn't collapse.
Right.
And we go,
And yet you're talking about metal that was in the basement. They're still molten hot and burning
Months later.
months later.
Months later. Not days later.
Right.
Months later.
Right.
They had still had, they could do the thermals in there, and they were picking up 2,000 to 3,000 degrees.
Right.
In the basement.
Right.
2 months afterwards.
Right.
They couldn't even go in and try to recover anything because of the heat down there.
Right.
Look it up.
Look it up.
And that's what we're saying is there's this appeal to this popularity of, well, this is what the government says happens.
Right.
Okay, so you're jumping on the bandwagon for that. Here's the agenda that we're going to implement now
Right.
that that's happened.
Right.
You're jumping on the bandwagon with that, and you've never done the investigation.
Yeah.
I remember standing there right after it happened, and standing with my buddies. I'm like, yep, because they started immediately. It was Afghanistan, it was Iraq, and
Right.
and I go, okay. I said, we need to go over there and turn that place into a fucking parking lot. Just bomb it.
Right.
And then I got away from it for a few months, and I really, I began to think about it more and more, and then I went, Lord, those are human beings.
Right.
Who am I? I just said turn that place into a parking lot,
Right.
Without any evidence
Right.
or validity other than what I was being told from the media
Right.
through officials who have an agenda.
Of course.
Okay, and they're and I'm jumping on that bandwagon and saying kill all these people because
Right.
of what happened, and I felt ashamed. And I completely changed my position. I said, no. I said, I disagree with this.
Right.
Now, we still have it on the wall.
Right.
We support our troops.
Right.
I don't support
The agendas.
the agendas that our troops, in fact, it pisses me off even more that troops with honor
Right.
and dignity and courage to go and fight
Right.
are being sent into areas that they should never be sent into
Right.
to do that. And they come back. That's part of the reason the suicide rate is so high.
Right.
In returning veterans, because they're being sent to places that they never should be sent into.
Right.
They're being asked to just, kill at random. Oh, well, this guy did something, so we got to take him out. And they go, okay, where's the action report? Where's the information saying what this guy actually did? And they go,
Right.
well, here, whatever. And then they're being asked to just murder people, without, it's like, well, they're on one of these cards, so we got to take them out.
Right.
And you go, what?
Yeah.
And so it's this matter of we're appealing to this popularity to bring validity to it. Like the war on terror is valid because all the people jumped on the bandwagon because of a catalyzing event,
Right.
such as a new Pearl Harbor,
Right.
which was what 9/11 was.
Right.
Okay. And now it's and dude, the symbolism. Doing it on 9/11, 911 is the call thing we make for emergency. I mean, when you go through the videos and you start stacking them up and you're like, wait a minute, dude. And the bottom line is today, I want people to go with is like, I don't care what you believe about 9/11. I don't care what you believe about thermite. I don't care what you believe about all these other stuff.
Right.
Whether you think planes hit it and you go, well, I saw the video. Well, you know what? I've watched a lot of Hollywood movies that look completely valid.
That's what I thought it was the trailer for
CGI.
Spider-Man. Because prior to that,
Yeah.
they had Spider-Man swinging between the Twin Towers.
Right? And you thought that was what it was when it was on TV.
I thought it was the Spider-Man trailer that they dropped the new Spider-Man trailer. Because
Right.
at that point in time, Tobey Maguire, that Spider-Man,
Right.
had not come out yet. In fact, if you go back, you're going to have to do some digging.
Yep.
That was the whole big push for the Spider-Man movie.
Right.
To represent the great Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And the power of New York City.
Right.
Was between the Twin Towers. That was a point of power and establishment.
Absolutely.
And then they completely changed the trailer
Because
of the Twin Towers falling down.
Right.
And here, taking away from what we're talking about today is the bandwagon. Okay, there's been so many times through the course of history that the bandwagon has snuffed out innocent human life.
Absolutely.
I don't care if you're from a different culture, if you're from a different ethnicity, whether you're from across the pond, whether you're from the other side of the world. Anytime there is a loss of human life,
it should give us pause.
it should give us pause. There should be a reverence of going, okay, that person is no longer with us.
Right.
Did they contribute to the world as a whole? Doesn't matter. It's the loss
Yeah.
of a human life.
Should
You
give
walk up to some stranger on the street and give them a gun and go, kill this person because they dress differently. Do you think they're going to do it? They're going to go, hell no.
Right.
But yet you start a lynch mob and go, this person, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, whatever.
Kill this person.
Right.
Right. It doesn't matter. Well, yeah, I'm going to jump on. Really?
Well,
it's a human life. Are you
Human life.
serious?
Absolutely. Well, that's why. Let's break down some of that. That's why we are a representative republic.
Right.
And yet, in the media, all they call us is a democracy.
Right.
Pure democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. That's the common phraseology. We're not. We're a representative republic.
Right.
There's a movement right now to get rid of the electoral college.
Right.
Oh, so a state like South Dakota doesn't have any electoral votes. They just have to go along with the popular.
Right.
And you're going to get everybody on the bandwagon for the popular vote.
Right.
Because you control L.A. and San Francisco cesspools and New York City and a few of these other metropolitan areas that you can get to vote a certain way and control it. And yet you're gonna invalidate the rest of the people. A representative republic it's like, okay, you're South Dakota, North Dakota. You've only got a population of 400,000 or something like that. Okay, look up their actual populations. But every state, no matter how big or small their population, gets 2 senators, which have equal votes. Right. They may have a smaller rep count.
Right.
In the House of Representatives, but they have equal in the Senate, and it takes, and when you read through the rules, it's brilliant the way that our founding fathers set up the Constitution. They're like, yeah, House of Representatives is more like a popular vote, because you've got you got a state like California that has 26 or something like that,
yeah.
And then you've got a state like I said, North Dakota or South Dakota that has a couple, 1 or 2 based on their population. And by all rights, originally the Constitution, it was like every 15,000 or 30,000 people you're supposed to have a representative.
Right.
So we should have several thousand, but they had to amend that because they're like, we can't do that.
This is getting out of control.
Yeah. But my point is that we live in a representative republic.
Right.
But where they're trying to get this popularity and this bandwagon to snuff out the minority voices.
Right.
And I don't mean minorities in racial or anything like that. I mean the people because the conservative or the right are often the ones that are the quietest. They don't raise a stink until they need to. Whereas the other people on the left, by and large, being in general, speaking in generalities, they're the ones that are shouting the loudest, trying to promote their things as being popular, so they can get everybody on the bandwagon.
Right.
But then when they sit back and they do these actual pure surveys and what do you call it? Where they call everybody up. Not a survey. It's not a survey.
Census?
The polls.
Polls.
When they take a poll, right, and they call everybody up and they do it in an unbiased way, it's far out. The popular crap that they're trying to push in the media is blown away because it doesn't compare.
Right.
But if you turn it into the mass media, you would see a totally different picture because they're pushing an agenda.
Right.
They're trying to get you on the bandwagon so that they can get their agenda.
Right.
The Green New Deal crap. And it's like, you literally want to kill people.
Right.
I mean, when you read through it, you literally want to kill people. That lady that was recently on the news, right? She came in there to that, whatever that event was, and she's like, you want us to wait for this? We need to be killing and eating babies and other people now because we can't sustain. Oh, yeah, dude.
Yeah.
She got up there.
Yeah.
And you saw that. Didn't you see the video?
Yep.
I think Crowder went over it. But anyways, so they're going over it, and then they found out she was a plant from LaRouche Pack.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
But the whole point was to go in there and say what these people actually believe. And AOC, occasional cortex was what David Knight calls her. Yeah. I love the way they both mess with it. I can't even say her name properly anymore because David Knight calls her occasional cortex and Crowder calls her occasional cortex. I mean, he totally butchers her name just on purpose.
Right.
But she's sitting there nodding her head the whole time. And they're talking about, I'm like, this is Soylent Green level shit.
No shit.
And you people are doing that. I mean, the Georgia Guidestones, we're supposed to maintain, 500,000 is supposed to be the max population of the earth at any given point.
Right.
So they want to cull the other, 6.9, if we're at 7.4, 6.9, no, not even 6, no, it's far more than that. They want to cull 7.35 billion people down to 500,000 in the name of overpopulation, which is another bandwagon of popularity, in the name of climate change, which is another bandwagon that everybody jumps on. Well, the science is settled. You don't settle science. Science should be always questioning and re-questioning and re-questioning and re-challenging itself.
Absolutely.
Let alone people from the outside challenging it and going, I don't know.
Yeah.
There should be more innovation and more challenging of your premises and constantly growing.
Right.
You should be testing yourself. Don't put out 5G and not test the frequency waves because it's causing cancer in people. All right? It's another one, a whole nother topic. But again, we're dealing with the appeal to popularity and the bandwagon, and how much people push the bandwagon to try to bring a validity to whatever their agenda is.
Right. What's socially acceptable because of the popular trend. So we're killing babies and eating,
We don't
small children because that's the popular thing to do. How well does that work out?
Well, it's again.
Really,
it really is a Satanism. It's really. That ultimately is a satanic.
There's got to be a certain level of hell available to these people.
I think they're
When they
already
go to
partially
beat their
there.
Well, that's my point, though. Is okay.
How do you twist it? Do you have to
when
beat it?
you infringe on someone else's life, liberty, and the pursuit
of happiness?
Right.
Now you're messing up. But look at it this way. So the appeal to popularity, getting on the bandwagon, you're taking a psychopath at the least, a sociopath at probably, like Hitler.
Right.
He's only validated in his psychopathy, in his sociopathy, by getting people to get on the bandwagon with him. So he gets a core group of people around him, okay?
Right.
And they push their agenda. They go to jail for doing it the first time, right? And then they come back. There's a resurgence. But he's got this group, this core that push the agenda and push the agenda and push the agenda. And pretty soon they create a popularity.
Right.
They rise to power in that popularity. And then once they're in, they start incrementally taking away rights. They take away the guns.
Right.
They take away the right to self-defense. And then they take away property, and they just start confiscating stuff, and it's incremental.
Right.
It was pretty fast, but
right.
But what was Hitler came in 1933, I think. 33.
1930.
And by 39, they were progressing in war, and that was actually faster than what their agenda, what they wanted.
Yeah.
But they needed to gather resources that they were short on, so they thought, well, we'll just go into Poland.
Right.
And the way that they did Poland was they sent German troops into Poland, dressed as Polish soldiers, and then attacked the German border, therefore provoking,
of course,
the Germans to come in and attack Poland because they were provoked by the Polish people. It was a total, absolute false flag.
Of course.
But that's the dirty shit that these type of people do in order to make it popular so they can get everybody on the bandwagon and have the support to go in and invade another country, take away their sovereignty.
What is it, George Soros?
Oh yeah, he's behind so much stuff, dude. He's a
Look up George Soros and the connections to Black Lives Matter. I'm not gonna expound on it. I want you to look this up. Dude, because the whole Black Lives Matter movement was nothing but bullshit, courtesy of George Soros. Look it up.
Right.
I'm not going to explain.
Oh, Antifa is another one that he's
supporting. Yeah, Antifa.
And we're anti-fascist. Every one of your tactics, just from if I just watch the mainstream media clips, every one of your tactics is completely fascism.
Right.
It's completely trying to change the agenda by attacking people.
Right.
It's like...
all because of a bandwagon mentality.
It is the bandwagon. It's getting people on board through an appeal to popularity to try and bring a validation.
And see, here's the thing: is we're talking about events that has happened through the course of recent history,
right?
Not this is what 2, 3, 4 years ago
of
recent history of Black Lives Matter.
Well, they really started to come to fruition. Once Trump was elected, and we're three years into. I mean, we're not even fully 3 years into it, because they just started doing the.
Well, but if you look at it, you can even find even more scary things. If you just go of current events right now, type in current events to whatever search engine you subscribe to, and look up just current events of what's going on, you are going to be stunned at how many things that are so unconstitutional,
absolutely,
that are falsified.
The FISA court is completely unconstitutional, operates under false premises and maritime law.
It's creating a lynch mob mentality.
Absolutely.
With the bandwagon. Okay, this is designed to divide.
Property seizure.
Period.
The property seizure. They've taken that where they just come in and seize your property under a pretense.
Right.
and never give it back to you.
Right.
And you've got to fight for your stuff to get it back.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't have the money or the resources,
Forget it.
Your stuff's gone.
Yep.
And then they have these government auctions, where they're selling off stuff. It's ridiculous, dude. And we got to start taking a stand. That's part of what I want to do, on this, because I'm very passionate about it. But we got to start at. I go back to fundamentals.
Right.
I leave it to Alex Jones and his crew there at InfoWars, and to guys like Gavin McGinnis and guys like Steven Crowder to really bring out the facts and present that. What I want to do is what we're doing right now is bring out the roots of how they got there. Right. I don't want to go over Operation Northwoods and go through the paper and see all the redactions of it. I want to talk about the appeal to popularity and the bandwagon effect. I want to talk about the appeal to authority. I want to talk about what it really means, like we've done in a number of episodes, talking about what real love is, not this church, this fake church stuff.
The grammar, the rhetoric, and the logic of this is where it's coming from. Here's the level playing field.
Right.
This is what the definition actually says.
Right.
You can look it up yourself.
Right. And then come to your own conclusions from there.
Right.
And if you want to do further research about 9/11, you want to do further research about the Gulf of Tonkin, if you want to do further research about Operation Northwoods, the Cuban Missile Crisis, you want to do further research about, the 2-year investigation we just had to endure, 2 separate investigations about, Trump-Russia collusion, and then they come to the conclusion, and the investigators themselves said there's nothing there.
Right.
There's nothing there.
Right.
And they even tried to, what do you mean there's nothing there? There's nothing there.
Right.
Well, was there maybe a little bit of something there? No, there's nothing there.
Right.
There's nothing there. And it's like, we had to endure 2 years of that. It's like, are you kidding me? Because it was popular to think that this guy couldn't get into office. He's got to be bad. He's got to be evil. He's got to be this. I have had friends that voted for Hillary, and I never got into a discussion with them because they're my friends and I love them and I don't want to deal with that. But I'm like, you voted for them because they were the popular choice on that side of the aisle. You didn't do the due diligence. You didn't do the investigation. I knew a ton about Trump and the other politicians that ran.
So did I.
Well before he ran for president.
Right.
I know the prophetic word from Kim Clement that he was going to run.
Right.
That came out 2 years before he decided to run.
Right.
I know the prophetic word from Kim Clement that he is going to serve 2 terms and that we are in the times of Joshua, or not Joshua, Joseph, where we're in the 7 years of plenty, and then we're going to endure 7 years of lack.
Right.
And I asked the Lord about that. I said, 7 years of plenty, 7 years of lack. And he says, go study Egypt.
Right.
And what actually happened. And I go, okay, so there was 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine or lack, right? But Egypt prospered through the whole 14 years.
Right.
Because they stored up. They were wise.
Right.
They stored up in those 7 years. So when the other 7 years came in and everybody else didn't have anything, they had to sell. They had to come in, just like the story of the Israelites going into Egypt. They were like, what do you have? Well, we need grain to survive. Okay. What do you got? Well, we got gold. We got this. We got that. So they literally had to sell off their possessions. And Egypt was like, okay, we're going to fill up our storehouses with all of the wealth of the surrounding nations who didn't prepare. So I'm looking at Trump with these, the beginning of it, this time of Joseph, where we have these 14 years, 7 years fat, where we're supposed to store up and be wise, and then 7 years where we're gonna be able to help our neighbors because we were able to do it, right?
Of course, yes, absolutely.
But at the same time, we're going to be enriched and become wealthy, not through extortion or anything wrong, but because you didn't store up, you're going to have to buy grain from us. You're going to have to. And the cool thing I just heard the other day, we are becoming a net exporter of oil. I think by this time next year, we will be a net exporter of oil. And so the whole fallacious argument, the appeal to popularity bandwagon that we've got to get off foreign oil is going to be completely wiped out. It's not about foreign oil. Then they go, well, the CO2. Well, plants breathe CO2. So if you take CO2 down, you're killing trees.
Right.
Well, no, that's what I was taught in grade school science class, that we breathe oxygen, exhale carbon dioxide. Trees breathe in carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. So what are you doing? And the sun is the number one dictates of how warm or cool the planet is.
Right.
And the fossil fuels, and I hate using that term. I'm not going to use it anymore. Oil, just use oils or whatever. Anyways, point being, appeal to popularity. And so I had friends that voted, and I didn't want to get into the discussion because I love them, and I didn't want to damage the relationship. And I'm speaking in generalities even now because I know some of them will tune into this. But I'm like, did you actually study Hillary Clinton? Did you actually study her history? I mean, valid history. One of her first cases ever This is not hype. This is not hyperbole. This is not in any way untrue. She literally defended a guy, or it was a group of guys. It was at least one guy.
Yeah.
That brutally raped.
Right.
She was 13 or 14.
13 or 14, I think it was. Yeah, I remember reading that article, and I'm going.
And Hillary got up there and accused the girl of
antagonizing it,
wanting it,
right.
of you were provocative, you were being provocative, you were doing all this, and it's like, you defended that piece of shit, and then all their other stuff. It's like, look up the Clinton body count. Don't do it on Google because they suppress that search.
Yeah.
Look it under DuckDuckGo or Start Page.
Right.
The Clinton body count. Okay, and the amount of people that have died. And I go, if there was anything like that, I researched Trump as well.
Yeah.
It's like, he's been married a couple times, and he dated some pretty hot chicks, in between that, and
right.
That's and he's got a bit of an ego as far as his TV show.
Right.
What's his name doesn't like him, Gillette Penn.
Yeah.
He doesn't like
Well,
Trump
and
because
he's
he served
also-
with him on The Apprentice.
Well, he's also
whatever.
been bankrupt. He's also
He built something.
right.
He knows how to run a company.
Right.
He knows how to have excellence in his business. And I look at all these other politicians, I'm like, the only thing you've been good at is getting reelected.
Right. If
And
you're going to
Hillary-
be a career politician as opposed to a career public servant because you were elected into office.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You want to jump on the bandwagon? Fine. Represent me because I elected your stupid ass into office.
Right. I elected you on what you said you were going to do.
Right.
And most of the time they get in immediately into office and don't do what they're going to do.
Exactly.
I didn't like Obama as a president. Okay.
Yeah.
I still respect and honor the office.
Right.
But when he came out and said you can keep your doctor, we never signed up. We got not necessarily threats from the IRS, but we did get notifications, right? And we got the phone calls, definitely from third parties.
Right.
You got to sign up for Obamacare to avoid the penalties and everything like that. And I just waited it out and trusted the Lord. And then finally Trump got in there and invalidated it.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I can't believe it was the Affordable Care Act. Yeah, I watched my mom and my mother and father-in-law watch their insurance that they had for years skyrocket under the Affordable Care Act, and their opportunities and possibilities of the amount of doctors that they could see and everything like that just evaporate.
Right.
Okay, now you can only go to this, and it's going to cost you 4 times as much.
Right.
And it's just like...
That's the way with my cousin. She's a cancer survivor. Mm-hmm. And she got to the point to where it was so astronomical just for a weekly visit to a doctor that just simply wasn't there. They were seeing a nurse practitioner.
They want to turn us into other countries. I mean,
it's like, are you kidding me right now?
What did I hear the other day? That Dick Cheney got an operation. His heart transplant took a day. It took like a couple days to get it all set up.
Right.
But he waited 4 months in Canada.
Yeah.
But they've got great health care. No, they've got huge taxes up there, and then they've got a subpar healthcare. I mean, their healthcare may be good as far as the actual service, but when you can get in and get the service,
of course,
will take you months and months and months and months and months to get in there. So again, we're dealing with the appeal to popularity, what it means to have a bandwagon. So I just encourage everybody out there, if you're looking at something that's very popular, first of all, have a little skepticism, a little healthy skepticism in that, and say, you know what, just because this is popular, I'm going to do a little bit more research.
And don't be afraid to challenge that popular
It's hard
belief.
to stand up in a room and be the only dissenting voice.
Yes.
But you know what you'll find is that if you dissent sometimes in those situations, a lot of times, I found this a lot of times, me standing up and dissenting, if I need to stand up, sometimes it's not even worth engaging the argument. You just listen to whatever somebody's spouting off and you walk away. But if you're being pulled into the conversation, and you're not just a fool delighting in airing his own opinion, but you're being pulled into the situation and you're being asked your opinion. And then you step in there and go, okay, well, here's my opinion. You be the dissenting voice, the only dissenting voice in the room. It's amazing how many people would jump off the bandwagon once you present a valid dissension against that popular thing that they're trying to validate.
And that's the thing, is on this platform, yes, we're expounding on our opinions. But the fact remains is it all comes down to a conversation of not saying, down with the establishment, anarchy for everybody. No.
Go back to the constitutional
we're having a conversation that a lot of people are having because they are questioning the status quo.
Absolutely.
And whether they agree with us or they agree to disagree with us, whatever the case may be, okay, we're having the conversation.
Yeah.
We're going, okay, what's your opinion based on the facts? Not subscribing to the bandwagon mentality, but let's have a conversation about this.
Right.
Let's help educate each other.
Yeah.
And looking up definitions, the grammar, the rhetoric, the logic, to where we can go, okay, well, if this is my opinion based off the knowledge and education that I've gained, that, it could be wrong.
Right.
Okay, cool. Then that involves further due diligence, further education, further dialogue.
Absolutely.
Between you and whoever it is. Obviously, we have this platform to do so.
Right.
To educate ourselves. I mean, there's been a couple of different things that I'm like, wow, I need to explore that a little bit more.
Absolutely. Stuff that you know quite a bit about, and then you go, you know what, as we're digging back in this and we're going back over it, I want to look it up again. So again, bandwagon, the appeal to popularity or the fact that many people do something as an attempt to form validation. Whenever you find that people are trying to validate a position or an argument by getting enough people to jump on. The scene that I'm thinking of is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, with a guy, the Ku Klux Klan guy, is running for governor. Yeah. Right? And he stands up there and they find out that he's part of the KKK. Yeah. And he goes, well, is he ain't my constituency. Yeah. He's trying to maintain the popularity, and they're like, we just found out that you're a dirtball. And part of the KKK and killing black people just because they're black. You're a piece of shit. Right. We're done with you. Right. And it's like, that's when you find yourself in a position where people are trying to bring validation. Right. By making something popular, or because it's popular, they're trying to validate it. Because something's, a lot of people are doing it. That's what brings validation. And that's when you got to stop.
He makes the statement in that scene of, infringing on a lynch mob, and it's due authorities or whatever it was. He said. It's like
you can't stop a lynch mob.
Right. Wait a minute. So you're pissing all over a lynch mob and its practices. Hold the phone.
Right.
You're taking out a person of color or ethnicity or culture based on their skin color.
Yeah, you're a piece of garbage.
You're a piece of shit. Yeah, and of course it's fiction, but it's also based off of.
Yeah, but there's some truth in that.
Where there's some truth in it, right? Yeah. It's that creative
license,
creative liberties. Yeah, with a lot of that stuff, but still the foundation. The storytelling part about it holds true across many different platforms to go, that's just a shitty person. Yeah. You're going to kill somebody based off their skin color. Really?
Yeah. Dude.
No, not okay.
White, black, whatever color you are. Right. Nobody should be targeted for their color. No. I don't want to be targeted because I'm a white guy that somehow I'm racist.
I don't want to be targeted because I'm bald.
Exactly. But you know what? Just let's sit down and have a conversation. You want to disagree with my positions, that's fine. But I've studied them. What have you studied? Or you just jumped on a bandwagon? Right. So with that, I am Jeremy Scott Gibbs. This is my brain. The earwig, as usual, in my brain, Mr. Tony Bradley. And we're going to call it for this episode. This has been a presentation on the bandwagon, the appeal to popular, whatever's popular, to try to make it valid. And we're going to end with that. So, Nate, cue up the outro, my friend.
Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell for the next episode when we go live.
Yes, sir.
This is my brain.
Dad, that's an egg.
Yeah, that's an egg.
Honey.
Dude.
That's an egg.
Seriously.
Yeah.
That's an egg.
It's a metaphor.
Yeah, but that's an egg.
That's an egg.
All right, Jeremy, I hate to break it to you. That's an egg.
I know my brain is not actually an egg, okay? It's a metaphor.
Metaphor or not, that's not your brain.
It's just an egg.
Una cerveza para mí. My egg is my brain.
It's still an egg.
Can I at least have some bacon, maybe some sausage with that egg, though?
Oh, I want some bacon.
I don't know, man. I'm not good at this shit. I want crepes.
Okay.
Can I have some bacon and pancakes with that egg?
I'll take it with scrambled eggs and cheese.